I am Rico Chapman. I am the academic director for Hamer at COFO. Our staff, we have Keith McMillan. He's our interim director. We have Latasha Garrett. She's our administrative assistant. She's up at the top. And our two graduate assistants are Brandon Taylor and Precious Bynes. I will be followed by greetings from Dr. Lawrence Potter Jr. He's the Dean of the College of Liberal Arts. From there, we'll go into our opening remarks by Dr. Willie J. Greer Kimmons. He comes to us from Dayton, Ohio. Daytona Beach, Florida. He's the founder of Save Children, Save Schools Incorporated. And our moderator today is Dr. Rodney Washington, Chair and Associate Professor, Elementary and Early Childhood Education here at Jackson State. Thank you and welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. Let's try this again, Jackson State University. Good morning. Good morning. Let me take this opportunity to thank the extraordinary staff for Hamer at COFO. Many of you probably remember the Fannie Lou Hamer Institute and the COFO Education Center as two separate entities. Effective August 15th this year, it became Hamer at COFO through the elimination of duplication of services, programs, and the like, and given some administrative shifts. And so I want to personally give Rico Chapman, Keith McMillan, and Latasha Garrett a round of applause for being able to continue the legacy of both Hamer and COFO. I'd also like to suggest to you that today's program is one that is near and dear to my heart, largely because as an African-American male in these United States of America, there is often the question of whether or not a conspiracy theory exists. And I'm often reminded as a professor of English that there is one key role of the black male, and that is to survive and thrive. And one of the things that I thought would set the tone for at least my comment and my greeting to you here in the College of Liberal Arts, better known as the College of Culture, was a poem that I grew up learning and living by Langston Hughes, called Mother to Son. And Hughes writes, "Well, son, I tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It's had tacks and splinters and boards all torn up in places on the floor where there ain't been no carpet. Bare. But I's a climber. Now don't you turn back because you find it kind of hard. And just remember, life for me ain't been no crystal stair." And I think that those words from Hughes's poem echo very, very seriously today. Because when you look at the plight of young men in this country, particularly black and brown, the plight continues to be one that is inextensively troublesome. We have more young men who are part of our prison industrial complex than we do in higher education. And it is my hope that the panelists this morning will share with you their insights on how they are planning to save these young men. And it is my hope that young people in the audience will be able to walk away and find new solutions to the problems that we find in our community. And we hope that, at least in some way, you become informed by this impactful presentation. So again, welcome to the College of Liberal Arts.
Good morning. Oh, you can do better than that for somebody who just came from Daytona Beach, Florida. Good morning. Good morning. I want you to do one thing for me right quick. I got a couple of minutes. I want you to repeat it as loud as you can. Save our children. Save our children. Do better than that. Save our children. Save our children. Save our schools. Save our schools. Save our children. Save our children. Save our schools. Save our schools. Never ever. Give up on our children. Because our children are our greatest resource. Our children are an extension of us. And our children are our future. I'm Dr. Kimmons from Hernando, Mississippi. Grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, and I'm in Daytona Beach, Florida. Been 3 college presidents, superintendent of schools, and the whole 9 yards. Old of 27 sisters and brothers. 16 sisters, 11 brothers, and 73 nieces and nephews. I've been doing this for 40 years in terms of my ministry, trying to help save our children, especially black boys. started a program, a rites of passage program in Daytona Beach, Florida. 105 young men. I'm sick and tired of attending funerals. I've done 6 eulogies since January. African-American males, all under 25 years of age. Something is wrong. Something is wrong. We have a moral obligation, personal and professional obligation, to do what's in the best interest of our children, especially our young African-American boys. We need more positive role models, mentors. I call them elders. We have a moral obligation, a professional and personal obligation as African-American men to stand up and do what's right and assume our rightful responsibility as males. God didn't make any dumb children. God didn't make any bad children. We as adults make them bad and dumb because children imitate adult behavior. Watch what you do and say around these children. I want to say a great good morning to your dean here. Where's Dean? Dean Potter. Give him a round of applause for having the insight and the initiative. Also, where's Keith McMillan?
Here he is.
If it were not for Mr. Keith McMillan, I wouldn't be here. I felt this young man's spirit through an email. Anything that deals with black males. I said, this is a young male. This is a young man. I have 2 grown sons myself, one 40 and 42 years of age. I told them, do like my grandfather taught me in Hernando, Mississippi. Get a good education. He was taught, get a good education. Own some land and real estate. Invest in yourself when you're young so you can reap the benefits when you're old. It's important to do that. It's important to do that. And the other thing to keep in mind is that, one thing about it is when we talk about young black males, early intervention is key. Early intervention is key. We know what the research says. By the time a child is 3 years old, 80% of his or her likes and dislikes and personalities is already formulated by the time they're 3. Little black boys learn different than little black girls. Little girls mature 3 to 5 years of little black boys. And so I'm going to cut this short because we have to make sure that we close that gap. There's a huge disconnect between my generation. I'm 69 years of age. God is good. All the time. There are 2 main ingredients that will always sustain us in life: religion and education. Never forget that. Never forget that. It's important that we talk to these young black males. We cannot talk to them enough. Don't run when you see the police. A whole court in the barbershops in Daytona Beach, Florida. Black males tell me, Dr. Kimmons, they're going to run over us. They're going to shoot us. Don't run. Just 3 weeks ago, I just did a eulogy for a 38-year-old black male in Daytona Beach, Florida, running from the police. They ran over him in the car, decapitated him. Don't run from the police. We need to talk about the pitfalls, the do's and don'ts, the pitfalls of life. But we have to spend some quality and quantity time with these young black males. And I want to say, once again, I'm delighted to be here. And I really, really want to say to these young men who put this program together, to have the initiative to try to save our black boys, the seed barrier. It is important. I have 7 godsons in Daytona Beach, Florida. Daytona Beach is only 15% African American. Only 10% of us vote. We just voted in the first African American male in the history of Daytona Beach, Florida, because of the fact that we invested. Say invest. 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 The best investment you can make is in our black males. When you invest in our black males, you invest in our future. God bless you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kimmons. I was kind of captivated by his speech. I think we could have given him a little bit more time there. Hello, everybody. I'm Rodney Washington. I chair the Department of Elementary and Early Childhood Education at Jackson State University there in the College of Education. This morning is a very important dialogue, and I know our panel is a little bit shy about this head table here, but I'm going to call you up and ask you to position yourselves accordingly in terms of your order of presentation while I give your presentation. You'll have to forgive me, I have a little tennis injury here. Brother Chapman is also my tennis buddy. I have a little tennis injury. So if I'm frowning up every now and then, it's not that I disagree with what you're saying, I may be in a little bit of pain. And it may be time for you to sit down. So we want to try and move this along accordingly. But it was interesting, the doctor told me that I've done this over the course of a period of time to my hand I play so often. And he said that I caused a little bit of damage there in terms of how often I play and long term. And I thought to myself, in terms of this particular presentation, sometimes you can think you're doing something that you really enjoy, but you can be causing some long-term damage by the decisions that you're making in daily life. And so this panel, I don't want to try and give you any sort of stats or data. I'm sure that our experts will do that in their presentation. I want you to please take in the dialogue that's being said, and please position yourself to ask questions a little bit later after the presentation. Each panelist will have about 10 minutes for their presentation. I know that's pushing it for academicians, but we're going to try our very best to stay on board there. Our first presenter is Dr. Derek Broom. Dr. Derek Broom comes to us as an assistant professor of sociology at the University of Louisville, where he teaches race in the United States and social theory. You get courses like that here at Jackson State, but I digress. He is also a task force member of the University's African American Male Initiative Program and faculty affiliate to the Student African American Brotherhood. Both programs aim to increase the number of college graduates and improve the academic achievement or retention of African American male students. His current research investigates the lives and educational experiences of African American males and representation of African American identity and culture with the media. Prior to teaching at the collegiate level, he served as on the design team and worked as an administrator, teacher, and coach at Urban Prep Charter Academy for Young Men, an all-boys charter school located in Chicago's Englewood neighborhood. In addition, he served as coordinator of minority affairs in the Department of Athletics and an assistant director of the Office of Multicultural Student Affairs at the University of Chicago. He earned his doctorate in sociology from Loyola University of Chicago and a bachelor's in African and African American Studies at the from the University of Chicago. Let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Broom.
Good morning. Give you guys a quick context for why I do the work that I do, and 10 minutes is tough, but we'll make it happen. I am a product of the Chicago Public Schools, and when I entered 9th grade, we had 334 students in my class, and by the time we graduated, we had 99. And so I come to speak to you today primarily from this standpoint and having a concern even early in my own academic career with what's happening to our students as time goes on. I don't submit to you that I'm smarter than most of the folks that I went to school with. I would just argue that I was a little bit more persistent. And so today I want to talk to you a little bit about black males, academic aspirations, and critical pedagogy. Really talking about getting from here to there. Getting from here to there. From here to there, I'm borrowing the 1968 title of Dr. King's book, How Do We Get, Chaos or Community. So this research is based on part of a larger project where I'm looking at the narratives of about 50 black male students. Today's talk will pull data from 15 black male students, all from Chicago. And to begin, I frame my talk with these following three quotes. The first one from Dr. Du Bois: "Men we shall have only as we make manhood the object of the work of the schools. Intelligence, broad sympathy, knowledge of the world that was and is, and the relation of men to it." 1903. Also, Dr. King from the book that I mentioned. "Now, in order to answer the question, where do we go from here, which is our theme, we must first honestly recognize where we are now." Again, we can't know where we're going if we don't know where we're starting. And then finally, from Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed: "The greatest humanistic and historical task of the oppressed is to liberate themselves." I'll start with three quotes by young men that I talked to. The first one is Charles. "I was just nervous about high school, even though I did pretty well in grammar school with my grades. I just didn't know with high school. It was a lot of new things, and I was doing sports, so I didn't know about the balance." Ahmad said, "I didn't even know what a GPA was. I was just trying to make it." Darren says, "When I got my first report card, I didn't know what the numbers meant, but I knew the grades were good. I had 4 A's, 2 B's, and a C." So I gave you this as the context to the talk to really kind of highlight how black men, how young black males are entering our secondary institutions. And what do we need to start thinking about with regards to not only preparing them for the journey of secondary school, but then also at the critical junctures of moving forward to the collegiate level. And so my research agenda basically is how do we better understand the disconnect between aspirations and outcomes for young black males. And what I mean by disconnect is that there are high aspirations for young black men as they're in our classrooms, in our buildings, in some kind of way. Once we start looking at the data, again, I'm from Chicago, where 38% of black males graduate in 4 years from high school. 38%. A study in 2006 by the University of Chicago found that for young black males who enter 9th grade in Chicago public schools, 1 out of 40 will achieve a college degree by the age of 26. I'll give you that statistic again. 1 out of 40 by the age of 26. And for me, that's criminal. And so what I have here is basically, I want to explore the narratives of African-American college-age young men as they matriculate through their college and talk to them about their various experiences that they had prior to college that really supports their retention, academic achievement, etc. I was on the founding team of Urban Prep Charter Academy, as was mentioned, and the basic goal of the school is to send young black men to college. And so we just graduated our 4th class from the Inglewood campus in June, and for 4 consecutive years we've graduated 100% of our young black men, and we've also had 100% acceptance of 4-year colleges and universities for 4 consecutive years. And so I talk to you through their voices, not from anything that I've done necessarily that is groundbreaking, other than provide a platform for them to be who they are. And just to kind of give you a quick framework for what it is that I'm looking at here is really to criticize and be very critical of this deficit framework that exists in most of the academic literature that talks about the risk factors that young black males come into our buildings with. We use these negative labels such as uneducable, unintelligent, they have no desire to achieve, and I can argue that the black males that I've talked to both at the high school level and the collegiate level, I haven't found them. And so I really want to try to contribute to the conversation to really change some of the dialogue with regards to how we engage young black men when they walk into our building. And so what I'm presenting here is basically their voices and ways that we can learn from these young men to engage and enhance their educational experiences. If we look at the literature, the risk factors basically broadly consume 4 main themes: oppositional culture, structural racism, socioeconomic status, and the ways in which black males are stereotyped. And across this, we're basically talking about with oppositional culture, black males are oppositional to learning, right? So Majors and Bills talk about cool poles. Young black men think they would rather be cool than be educated and academically proficient. Structural racism, obviously, as we heard from our opening comments, where there are just barriers to black men within the United States with regards to social, financial, personal, academic success. SES status really looks at the ways in which lower income students overall, but then in particular lower income black males are ostracized within schools. And then we also talk about the ways in which black males are stereotyped with regards to how they enter our buildings. What I want to do is more so focus on their self-identity, critical pedagogy, and aspirations. And so this is just citations of some of the folks who've done this work. Naim Akbar talks about visions for black men. I'm framing my talk really through Duncan Andrade's notion of audacious hope, and such that when we see black men, what are our thoughts? Are we thinking that they can achieve, or are we thinking that they might not? And that approach really impacts how we engage them. And so I have Duncan Andrade's quote here at the bottom. At the end of the day, effective teaching depends most heavily on one thing: deep and caring relationships. So the more we care about people, so Dr. Kimmons, you talked about investment. The more we care and invest in people, the more likely they are to output. And so we need to really change the paradigm with regards to how we engage. And so what I'm going to do basically is just share with you the students' words. I'll try to keep it within the time frame, pull it all together, then obviously I'll be more than happy to talk with the Q&A. All right, so here's Eric. He just talked about his freshman year, and the main thing we want to point out is that he said, "I was just the guy straddling the fence." So again, for students who are in our schools straddling the fence, what do we do intentionally to help them either move forward or push them to the side? And so Eric is basically talking about, I could have been either way. I could have been excellent or I could have been mediocre. So what are our roles as educators with regards to helping them move forward with that? Here's Damien talking about his first semester. He played sports. So again, we start talking about athletic identities in conjunction with academic identities. Coming back from Christmas break, he had family health problems that came up with his father. So again, we know that there are things that happen in our lives that pull our attention and energies away from school. But again, if we have these investments, these positive associations and relationships, How do we help kind of broaden their academic aspirations? I talked to the young men about their choices with attending high school. Basically, we start looking at, in Chicago, we have district schools, but then we also have some schools where you can kind of choose to go to. So I was asking students, well, how did you end up at your particular high school? And here's just a representative sample. One student, the first student, Anthony, says, it was a combination of factors. Most of my teachers previously were women. I wanted to go to a school with more men teachers. Again, talking about the critical role, as you mentioned, Dr. Kimmons, that men play in the educational lives of young black males. Here's Eric, 50-50, he wanted to go, his mother didn't give him the option. But the good thing that he didn't go to this other school he was looking at because it's falling down. So again, what are the challenges that they face? And then finally, Darren said his mother, he went to the high school fair, his mother heard about anything and thought that being college bound was where he needed to be. And so the point of these statements is really to show how young men are agentic in their choices to attend school and what it is they're trying to do with their future. So even though they might not know where they're going, they have some ideas of what they're trying to do. Here's Darren again. I didn't want to be a statistic. All right? I didn't want to be a statistic. As I mentioned, the national high school graduation rate for black men is 52%. I misspoke earlier. In Chicago, it's 47%. And in the Inglewood community where I work, it was 38%. So our school was located in that Inglewood community. Here's Charles. First 2 years were rocky. I had family stuff going on. My last 2 years with help, I realized that I could accomplish so much more than I had been doing. I had teachers telling me that I can get a 4.0, and I started believing it. Again, what messages are we sending young men that they will start to invest themselves in? Are we telling them that they can only be athletes? Are we telling them that they can be entertainers? Or are we telling them that they can be academicians? They're going to receive those messages and then begin to develop identities around those. So we want to think about those critical ways in which we engage. Talking about high school experiences, Anthony, I had teachers that cared about me. They looked out for me when things got rough. I did better than I thought I would. Why? Because teachers cared about me. That care and concern impacted positively and created a positive correlation for his academic performance beyond what he thought was possible. Here's Damien. I got guidance and stuff just took off from there. I started being a better student and a better person. So again, what are the goals that we're trying to impact with our young men? Talking about the high school experiences, so the last two guys were talking about their teachers. Here's quotes from Jamil and John talking about their mentors. My mentor tells us to strive for excellence. You can tell that he's not just one of those guys that's talking to be talking. He does it as well. So for Jamil, he's paying attention to the walk that you're doing. So we can give the messages, but are you even following up on the same thing that your advice that you're giving? And so again, for Jamil, it was critical to see that he had a mentor that not only talked the talk, but he also walked the walk. Here's John. His mentor was very inspirational. He wanted me to strive for the best. He's hard on me with academics. He wants me to be the best that I can, and I know he would hate to see me fail. So again, these investments with regards to relationships have students to broaden their perspectives and think about being other-centered. So it's not simply about letting themselves down, it's about letting other people down. So the better relationships we can build, then the more we can move forward, all right? Friends and peer group. Here's Darren. I had to drop a couple of people because they weren't about anything, all right? What decisions, what information are we giving to young people? What decisions are our young men making with regards to who they flock with, right? Statement, you're only as good as the company you keep, right? I like to use the airplane analogy. There are places that we're going, right? There are places that we're going, and we think about a plane that, with a layover, not everybody's going to our final destination. So when we stop at some point, we gotta let some people go and we gotta let some baggage go, right? So this is what Darren is talking about. Friends and peer group, here's Charles. Relationship, most of my friends are pretty good. I feel like I can talk to them about anything. So again, positive peer relationships. Michael talks about pretty good with all my friends. I can talk to them about anything. We give each other motivation or whatever it is we might need. So again, these impactful peer group relationships have high correlation. This fits in with Strayhorn's work talking about the ways in which peer support enhance academic performance. Talking to the young men about college preparedness, Eric talks about needing great study habits. And I should mention, I apologize, that I talked to these young men as they graduated from high school, so they had not started college yet. So they're, again, projecting what it is that they think they're going to need in terms of preparation, etc. Here's Jamil. You need to know what you're getting into. You've signed up for something. Do you really know about it? Anthony, number one is drive and determination. Prioritize between going to a party and doing your work. So early on, prior to starting their college careers, these young men beginning to project what it is that they think they might need to do in order to move forward. Again, asking Charles about being prepared. Feels like he's ready, 60-40. Study habits are not where they need to be. I need to do more reading. My math is not that great. I just have some things I need to work on. So we can get our young men to understand they have critical understanding of where they are, and then what can we do to help bolster those. Damien, I don't believe I'm prepared for the level of rigor. John talks about, I had the drive and determination. Some things I had to do will help me get through college. So Damien's talking about non-cognitive factors, right? This drive and determination does not always come down to academic knowledge, but about how much we will persist in moving forward. Just a couple of points about college concerns. Here's Jamil talking about, I'm concerned what might happen with my family. Once I'm gone, I don't know what will happen because I won't be close. And so even though they're on college campuses, they still feel the tug of family. And here's Darren. I'm concerned about the workload. Don't know if I'll be able to do it. I imagine that I might miss home a bit. So again, our students are walking into our college classrooms and our institutions with these types of concerns. And so here's a couple of points to end with. What accounts for black male academic persistence to achieve academically? Some of the highlight points are support. We need to support them in their academic efforts, school culture and teachers, mentors and role models, talk about non-cognitive factors, and then student empowerment with regards to being agentic about the decisions that they make. Here's, I'll give you this last quote from one of the students, just kind of wrapping up what we were talking about. He just basically says, what you put in is what you get out. The work that you put in should get you the results that you want. I learned how to be resilient and how to bounce back from different setbacks that life puts before you. I learned to believe in myself, be accountable to myself. I learned to watch the company I keep, especially from freshman year. Lastly, I learned that I can do whatever I put my mind to. So how can we embolden students with this type of mindset so that we know that these challenges are going to come up and they'll continue to persist from there. So thank you very much.
I don't want to be the guilty one rushing everybody off of the platform here, but we want to try and keep to a time frame so we can entertain as many questions as possible at the end. Our next presenter, Dr. Philip Cockrell, we call him Flap, is our next presenter. Dr. Cockrell has a passion for educating and promoting diversity and inclusion and encourage tolerance, respect, and appreciation of students. As the immediate past president for the American College of Personnel Association, Pan-African Network, Dr. Cockrell has actively engaged in advocating on behalf of students and professions from underrepresented populations and assisting with programming effort at colleges and universities nationwide. Dr. Cockrell holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Family Studies from Mississippi University for Women, a Master's of Science and Educational Leadership, Student Affairs Administration from Florida International University, and a Doctor of Philosophy right here at Jackson State University. Without any further ado, in the interest of time, we're going to ask Dr. Cockrell to please come forward with the presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Great. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Washington, for the introduction. I do appreciate it. Again, I'm Philip Cockrell. The majority of my research focuses on pre-college programs for students who went through Upward Bound programs and their experiences after their first semester of college, and how the Upward Bound program initially assisted them throughout their first semester on to completion. But today I'm going to focus mostly on the topic a national catastrophe or either a local concern. But I would like to focus the majority of my presentation about, is this a problem within the African American community, or is this an opportunity for us to continue to implement programs and services to enhance the experiences of our African American students? So these are some of the characteristics. Of course, you see the sources that are listed there from individuals about what are some of the things that we are doing within the African American community, and how do African American students, how are they identified today within college campuses. Of course, we see the majority of them are first generation, probably low income college students who are possibly going through college trying to get a degree. We see that they work more than 20 hours because they do have to support their families. They're engaged, and so most of the time they're not having an opportunity to really integrate into the academic culture of the institution because they have family concerns and different things, so which forces them to work. A lot of the research focuses a lot on that. Instead of these students coming to four-year institutions, a lot of those students decide to pursue two-year degrees at our community colleges, or it may take them a little bit longer to pursue a degree. Devote less time to campus activities and studying. That was one of the things that we found, and I'm going to go a little bit into this later, in Sean Harper's research, that a lot of students are not engaged in academic or social activities within an institution because they have other things going on, whether they're raising a family, whether they're involved in sports, and so they're not actually engaged in the academic part of the community because of those things. And also we find also in the research that those students take a little bit longer to complete a degree, or they may drop out, or another term that is out there now, those students may stop out. The next slide I'm going to discuss a little bit about the national trends with the students who are African American, and what are some of the completion and degree attainment rates. So as you can see here on the slides, as you can see, African American men are lower than African American women when it comes to degree attainment. And that's on a national level. And this research here comes particularly from Harper and the Department of Education. Dr. Sean Harper just recently completed a study. I encourage all of you to have a look at that report that he just put out. He's at the University of Pennsylvania, and he works with the Center with Race and Equity, and just looking at how students are engaged in different careers throughout the United States. But in his research, he interviewed 219 African American male students to talk about their experiences at colleges and universities nationwide, whether it was a predominantly white institution, a historically black college and university, private, public, proprietary. He looked at all those schools and had opportunity to engage students in a conversation about their experiences while they were there at the institution. The next slide I wanted to, because I work primarily with the students here at Jackson State, within the past 5 years, these have been the degree attainment for our students here at Jackson State University. As you can see, the numbers were very interesting to me, especially when you look at the bachelor's degree level and how the difference is from between African American female and African American male. Very interesting, huh? And even as you go down through the master's and the doctoral level, as you can see, where African American males and African American females, with the numbers are still that they're lower than our African American sisters. So let's talk a little about the barriers to academic success. These are some of the things that, of course, that are in the literature that we're working with African American males on college campuses. One of the things that we found is that there's a lack of academic preparedness. That once these students are entering the colleges and universities, they're not academically prepared. And there's a term out there now that talks a little bit about, are you college ready or college able? And so most of the time what we find with African American male students, the literature tells us that the majority of these students, they're not college ready, so they haven't taken the academic coursework, the college prep courses, in order to assist them with transitioning to a four-year institution. We took a group of students last Friday, about 39 African American male students to Mississippi State University for an African American male summit. And one of the presenters talked a lot about that he worked within the engineering department. He's a professor there, and a lot of these students come to us saying they want to major in engineering. However, if you're majoring in engineering, probably your first semester of classes, you're going to be taking the chemistry, maybe the calculus, and the physics. Well, we find that a lot of these students, they didn't even take these classes in high school. So they're coming to us underprepared. And that's one of the things that we're going to have to continue to address. And so although they're college able, they're not college ready. So they spend a lot of time throughout their first semester or second semester of college taking those remedial classes that they're not going to get credit for anyway. So they push them further behind within their college experiences and the things that they want to do while they're here at the university. Financial struggles. Of course, There have been changes in federal regulations regarding colleges and universities, how they award financial aid. A lot of these students that we're finding in the literature, they don't even know how to apply for financial aid. They don't know where to go to apply for scholarships. And so that puts them behind as well. So by the time they're interested in pursuing a degree or pursuing college, they've already fell short of interest within the scholarship because they may have passed the deadline may have passed, and or they don't, they haven't taken the ACT, or they don't have the required GPA to do those things. Again, employment was something else that came up in the research, that these students have indicated that they must work in order to support their academic endeavors, which may take them a little bit longer to complete a 4-year degree. And so that's where we see students who are engaged in like 6 years in order to graduate, or possibly even 7. But now with the financial aid constraints, of course there's only 12 semesters that provide you an opportunity to get financial aid at institutions. The lack of family support is another one that came up. A lot of these students, they're first generation college students, they're unaware, their parents are unaware of what steps are needed in order to enroll at 4-year colleges and universities and or 2-year. So again, they don't have their support early on because maybe they're the first in their family to go to college. They may didn't have siblings to go to college. They may didn't have family members or relatives to go to college. So they find themselves don't have any support. So when they call home and try to ask questions, nobody has the answer. Unrealistic career goals. Again, they may be interested in going into a profession, but they haven't had the academic preparation in college, in high school, to prepare them to get to their next step. So again, we have to do more and more within the high schools to inform these students about what the requirements are in order to obtain a college degree, and then what are some of the courseworks or courses that you must take early on in order to be successful in your college career. Some of the recommendations that we talked about in the research, and also some of the things that we're interested in doing here at Jackson State to support our African American male students. Assess learning styles prior to the students enrolling here at the institution. And so having a one-on-one conversation about how do you, what is the best way for you to study? How do you take notes? And so, and also working with those counselors within the high schools to ensure that once those students set foot on a college campus, they are prepared to transition into every step of the career path that they would like to do, or to like to pursue, excuse me. Implement pre-college programs specifically for African American college students, and in particular African American males. So what are some of the things that we can do within the programs? Again, the pre-college programs that are offered throughout the university, but of course those things are tied to resources. And we have to ensure that those students who are engaged in those different events, they have a clear understanding of what the expectations are, and then what can we do to mentor those students through the process, because again, a lot of these students are first generation and are unaware of what the processes are in order to be truly engaged in the community. Another source of the information talked about engaging the parents and the families within the careers of these students. Most of the time, these students, their family members are unaware of what it takes in order to be a successful college student. They're unaware about the finances. They're unaware about how do we engage those students early on. And so it's important that we engage our family members as well. So that's why you see a lot of parent associations popping up on college campuses and being implemented to ensure that those students know that they have someone at home who is aware of the different things they're going through, as well as the parents are aware of how to assist their students in their matriculation through the university. Establish learning communities. Learning communities is another opportunity for students to get engaged here at the university. We have them for different majors, but of course it's our hope that we can start implementing these learning communities for specific populations, so students actually know that they can live within a residence hall, they can live within a community that's going to support them throughout their academic endeavors while they're here. And then the last one says sponsor workshops and programs for faculty and staff regarding ways to support African American male college students. This goes back to one of the theory that Nancy Schlossberg talks about in her literature about students feeling like they matter to someone once they enter the institution. That's very important. A lot of these students come from disadvantaged backgrounds, so they already feel marginalized. And Nancy Schlossberg's theory of mattering versus marginalized is that once students feel like they matter to someone on a college campus, they'll become more engaged, they'll become more engaged in different academic programs and social programs that are developed here at the institutions. Most of the time, these students become some of our best leaders while they're here. But the students who feel like they're marginalized, so maybe they may go to financial aid, they may go to another department on campus, maybe during their advising period, and they may have a bad experience. So these students are already coming from marginalized backgrounds, but it's important that we make sure that these students feel like they matter to someone once they're here at the institution. I just want to highlight some of the programs that we have here at Jackson State University that support our students and their academic and social endeavors that's here. One of the things that we're going to be doing, here at the university for all of our freshman students, they're going to be taking an assessment by type focus. And within type focus, it provides someone an opportunity to look at their strengths and their weaknesses. So before a student decides what major they want to pursue, the type focus assessment will give them some idea about what things that I'm good in, what are some of my strengths, and what careers pretty much align with my strengths. Also, we have the Center for Student Engagement and Inclusion, which involves the students in different programs and services outside of the classroom to ensure those students are aware of how to get engaged, how they can be successful while they're here at the university. Again, our Student Government Association is sponsoring a Gentlemen's Academy this year. The Gentlemen's Academy will provide those undergraduate students an opportunity to engage in different programs and services throughout their collegiate experience that will equip them with the tools to be successful while they're here. We also have a retention coordinator. So in the event that students are not attending classes, we can ensure that the retention coordinator provides them with the skill sets that they need, whether it may be academic or whether it may be social, how to get involved and how to get engaged. And then the last two, we have residential hall programming as well as role models. It's important that the students know that there are people here at the institution who are here to support them. But again, it goes back to mattering to ensure that those students are aware of what's needed in order to be successful here. And then the last one, I'm just going to leave you all with this. These are a couple of things that are best practices that are out there that a number of universities are utilizing. Of course, the University System of Georgia, they implement a number of different programs and services regarding African American male and how to support those students while they're here at their respective colleges. Of course, there is SAB, the Student African American Brotherhood, and then I'm sure most of you all probably know about the Todd A. Bell Resource Center at The Ohio State University and how this center came about, which making sure that students are engaged throughout their career. They do mentoring, they do different programs and workshops to ensure that those students are successful throughout their collegiate career. So.
Apple device out on the cockroach over here. Get a bell or something. Okay. All right, moving along. Next presenter. And I'd like for you all, if you can, to please take notes so that at the end, our panelists will all come to the front and address any questions that you have regarding the presentation. I know one pressing one will be, can you get your hands on their presentation? I'm sure we'll be able to handle that as well. Our next presenter is Mr. George S. Cole. He's a native of Madison County, Mississippi. He's a retired educator serving as a teacher, coach, and principal for over 30 years. He's been retired 3 times. Presently, he serves as a safe and orderly school consultant in the schools, community colleges, churches, and other faith-based organizations. He volunteers in several schools in Madison and Tallahatchie County, supports youth organizations like Madison 4-H, Livestock Club, and remains active in his church. Several years ago, Mr. Cole and his wife started the Colbright Foundation in one of the most poverty-stricken areas of the Delta, where they contribute to the needs of students. Without any further ado, Mr. Cole, please come forward.
Good afternoon. I'm glad to be here with you this morning, and I'm going to take you in a different direction. Most of my educational background deals with high school, junior high, and elementary students. My last 5 years as principal, I was principal out of the 37 years I was in education. I was principal 32 years, so I became principal very early. My last 5 years probably was the most learning, I had the most learning experience that I've ever had, because I was fortunate enough or unfortunate enough to run a prison not very far from here with all boys ages 13 years old to 21, a maximum security prison where all felons were housed. And it was 1,500 boys there, 1,362 of them were Afro-Americans. And I'll talk to you about what inspires me to do what I do today. Again, I've worked very hard in trying to do things with our Afro-American male. Particularly, we have to get them prepared with the high schools, the elementary schools, junior high. I think some of the problems that we have with the retention of our Afro-American males in college is because in some areas there's poor preparation before they get there. We don't prepare them, especially our boys, at an early enough age to catch them and let them know how important that college, university life is. During the time that I was working, I did not know, my first few years of working was with Madison County Schools. I worked 26 years there. 21 of those years I was principal. I spent 5 years with Memphis City Schools, and then my last 5 years again was in an area that really totally enlightened me on what I did. I'd like for someone, I'm an old football player, so someone give me a 2-minute warning, and I'll know to prepare myself too. Thank you, sir. We'd like to also talk about some of the things that I've heard already. No, I didn't prepare a presentation with my overhead. I have it, but I left it. But I do what I do because it affects me personally. And I have to say that those things that I do are personal to me because I see the plight of our black male. I see that, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to do something to pull them back from the direction that they're going into the direction that I know they need to go. I do know in athletics with our black males and with all extracurricular activities, a lot of times we spend so much more time in extracurricular activity than we do with academics. We decide maybe 11th and 12th grade that I have a lot of athletic ability, so I'm going to start studying. In some instances, it's almost too late to start studying. We have not prepared ourselves, or they have not prepared themselves adequately for life that's ahead. You become popular because you have done so well in athletics. Everybody looks up to you, and in most cases, in some cases, teachers are not going to let you fail because you mean that much to the school athletically. But then when you move on to a different life, and I'm going to take my life, because when I was in high school, there were not many, I didn't have many peers that were on my level as far as athletics went. Then I attended Alcorn State University, and I found out I was not as good as a lot of them down there. Then I decided that I better start getting my lesson, because in high school I thought that I was going to get out of high school, I was going to walk through college and go right into professional football. My first year, I got my knee torn up. They didn't have the technology to put you back together that they have now. So I decided that I better get an education. I still play. But I decided I may not be able to play professional football, so I'll get my education. And I also decided that most of the players down there were in physical education because they wanted to be under the coaches. I also said that I know I need to do something better than this, because if I don't play, once I get out there and when I get ready to get into education and start teaching or coaching, there are going to be too many. The competition is going to be too high because most of these fellows are majoring in physical education. So I changed to science, and that was a good thing on my behalf. But what really turned my life around after I left the public school system and went to become principal at this prison about 60 miles east of here in Lee County, I found out again the number of black males that were housed there and how they became imprisoned. I, being an administrator, would go every Tuesday morning. We had to have an administrative meeting, and they were determining who was going to fill these extra beds that we have, and there were not many extra beds. They started planning. They start planning for our males, and I think someone mentioned this earlier, when they're third grade. They look at their third grade reading scores and start building school prisons right then, because they know if they can't read, they won't succeed. Those things started turning me against the reason that I was over there. I had to look at it from a different perspective. So I started learning things that would bring our males to the prison. Also, during the time, as most of you know, or some of you know, that most of our facilities, if you've ever been incarcerated or know someone that has, is almost 100% filled with gangs. I learned as much as I could about gangs. They taught me well about the things that got them incarcerated. Not only did they start building prisons for our boys when they're 12 years old, when they're third grade, they start being recruited when they are 8 years old by gangs. And I know many of them. I know things that I'm not supposed to know about gangs. And I know that they don't stop when they leave high school, because they come into our colleges and throughout our colleges. I was looking at the Pittsburgh Pirates playing. I'm a St. Louis Cardinal nut. I was looking at them playing the other day, and I saw one of the signs on one of the Pirates' net. I said, I don't know how they allow that. If I know it, they ought to know that. They shouldn't advertise it, but it attracts our young males, and it hurts our young males before and after they get into the college ranks. Now, I'm going to talk to you the next 2 minutes about, I don't deal with the colleges as much, except I do a lot of public speaking about what you face when you walk away from these universities. Some of you are going to be in for a cultural shock to go into some of the areas and find some of the things that you do. But you need to know all that you can about things that hinders us. I have about a minute and a half now, but we need to know all that we can about those things that hinders us. I was taught those things to look for, those things that kept us from being successful. Those things when they would tell me, if I had had a role model, if I had a mentor, that would don't know who my father is, but if I had had somebody that would have taken me to church, to fishing, to hunting, to a movie, I wouldn't be here. But since I didn't have one, I chose my own. And that's who they are looking for, our boys, to be given $100 because they become protectors of their family at an early age because there's no male in the house. So what child, male, would not, at 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, would not take $500 to deliver this package somewhere? This is what drives me. This is not totally what our subject is about this morning, but this is what drives me. And this is one of the reasons we have so few Afro-American males in college, because they take a route that stops them from getting there. They will work hard. They look at things that glitters. They look at those things that are attractive, and they look at those things that they can make easy money to help their mom and the rest of their family survive. Thank you, and we'll come back again for something else that we can talk about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next presenter, I'm going to move to Dr. Ingrid Smith. Dr. Ingrid Smith is the Associate Dean of the College of Education and also serves as interim chair of the Department of Educational Leadership. She has served as the Assistant Professor of Leadership for Mississippi State University, Director of Partners in Progress in the Division of Undergraduate Studies in Florida at Florida International University, Assistant Superintendent in the Yazoo City Municipal School District, Principal of Northwest Jackson Middle School. She has authored some books on the topic, The Female Factor and The New Male Nation. She is the co-author of 2 textbooks, School Discipline and Psychology and The Teaching Game. She is currently working on the most recent book, Planted in Faith, Growing by Grace. Without any further ado, Dr. Ingrid Smith. If you feel like the time is fleeting, just look over that.
Hi, everybody. I have been asked on a number of occasions, what is the problem and what do we need to do? I've heard all the data and so have you. So the discussion as to whether or not it's a national catastrophe or a local concern, it's a national catastrophe. It really is. It doesn't take much to figure that out. You can listen to the music to realize that we're having a problem with African American males. You can walk down the streets and realize that we're having a concern with African American males. And I've been asked now to make this presentation on a number of occasions. And to say the first time I did, I was flown in from Florida. I drove miles and miles and miles in the country. Finally found the organization who had invited me to speak. And they had invited all the people. Sure enough, the auditorium was full. By the time I finished, they said, "Thank you very much." Everybody left. Never heard from them again. The next time I was asked, they said, "We're going to bring some people in because we really want to know what the problem is. We really want to know what the concern is. We really want to know how we can deal with this. How can we impact this?" I made my presentation. They said, "We'll get back." That was the end of that. So hopefully today you will take this message forward and at least speak to someone about it. Now, do I hit return? Is that what I do? What do I do? Okay. So, it's time for the church to step up. Plain and simple. It's time for the church to step up. Those of you who are not members of a church, you might want to find a church you can work with. It doesn't have to be your church, it can be any church. But it's time for the church to step up. Throughout history, the black church served not only as a place of worship, but also as a community bulletin board, a credit union, a people's court, to solve disputes, support groups, and a center for political activism. These and other functions enhance the importance of ministers. The most prominent clergy in the civil rights movement was Dr. Martin Luther King. Time magazine in 1964 called him Man of the Year. He was a man of the people. So what are we looking at now? This is the way the community looks now. It's time for our ministers to step up. It's time for them to take the role, leadership role in the community. We've talked about all the things these young men need. The women are doing all they can. Many of the moms are working 2 jobs to put food on the table. We know they need mentors in the church. There are a lot of retired men, deacons, who would love to work with young men. Church got to take a stand. As I told you, the evening they invited me and flew me in, it was an audience full of ministers. Had to have been at least 100 ministers there. By the time I finished, they said, "Thank you very much," they left. Not a one came down to say, "What do we need to do to finish this job that you mentioned?" I'm only going to give you some of the information today, and then if you want to know more about it, I'll be happy to come to your church. Okay? Because this is very serious. So where do we find the help? Where do we find the mentors? Where do we educate them? How do we feed them? How do we get them out of trouble? How do we keep them from the gangs? We bring them to the church. This is the way it looks now. The school, businesses, and parents, they're all trying to impact each other. The church meets on Sunday, Wednesday night, go home. Into that. I'm not down on the church. I belong to a church. I'm saved. I know that God saved me. I know that that's the only reason I'm standing here. Little country girl, I know that's the only reason I'm here. If somebody cared enough about me, my mom and dad, to take me to church. Many of you, the only reason you're here is because the civil rights movement got involved. The church leaders decided it was time to take a stand, and they jumped out there and they took a stand. Didn't take any federal funds. Didn't take a whole lot of money. All it took was a concerned group of people in a church who said, enough is enough. It's time to take a stand about the injustices that's going on among our people. I have the same message for you today. Enough is enough. It's time to take a stand about the injustices that's going on with our African American young men. An 8-year-old, I work in Dade County schools. I had a student tell me that his mother told him, as long as we're talking 6th, 7th grade, his mom told him, as long as you make it in by 5 o'clock, it's good with me. 5 o'clock in the morning. Okay, I have another one tell me, I told him I was going to call his mom. He said, if you can find her, you let me know. Because I haven't seen her since I don't know when, I don't even know where my daddy is. So when you find her, you let me know. Okay, those are the kinds of things our children are facing. Where is the church in this? Where's the church? Okay, so where's the help? The school and the parents are fighting a losing battle without the support of the church. It's just as devastating as it would have been in the civil rights movement had Dr. Martin Luther King, Dr. Ralph Abernathy, and all the other ministers got together and held meetings in the church and said, this is what we need to do. This is where we've got to start, and let's go get our children. I was a principal. I can tell you that if I had called a minister and said, look, can you send a deacon out here to get this young man? That young man would have changed like that. Because they don't want to see another man show up. The last thing they want to see is another man show up. But they can bluff their moms, and they can cry, and they go through the song and dance, and get by. Build a community around the church. The church is the only entity that's strong enough to support families, school, and businesses. This is the only organization that will save our children because the church is held up by businesses, by parents, and by the faith of the members. This is the way it should look. With help from the community, the church, the teachers can win. So you see the school, you see the church holding up the school, you see businesses and families impacting the church, and you see active church members who have a faith in God to support the school. What we're looking at is a moral problem. What's a moral problem? We can pass all the laws we want. It's a moral problem. You've got to give these kids hope. You've got to give them faith. But you got to put your life and your time where your mouth is. So we can talk about it all we want, but until you get out there and do something, no one's going to believe you. That is why schools were first started by churches. That's why a church can start a school, but a school can't start a church. Actually, and Catholic schools have known this for years. Catholic churches have known this for years. That is why there are so many free schools in churches. You look around any community, Jewish community, anywhere you look, first thing you're going to see is the church, and bam, there's a preschool right there, because they want to indoctrinate those children early and let them know that success is possible for you. We care about you. We incubate you. We're going to take care of you. We're going to shelter you. We're going to mentor you. We're going to take care of you until you learn to believe in yourself. So I'm going to close here because I only have a few minutes. And I just want you to know the role of the school. The school teacher cannot replace the Sunday school teacher. In society, putting prayer in schools is like putting a fox in the hen house. You don't know what these teachers believe. The school may be able to teach them to read, but it cannot teach them to read the Word of God. Just as simple. So as I said, as I close, I can go through the role of the church. I got the whole program ready. I'll give it to you free. I'll give you whatever I need to do to support this because, like you, I lived in Dade County, Florida. I saw too many young men die. I saw too many die. And so I'll do what I need to do. I'll present it. I'll say it as many times as I need to say it. But I can tell you again that the second time I presented this was 2 ministers. They all met. They said, yes, 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 yes. When I finished, they said, see ya. Never heard from again. So I challenge you today. Talk to your minister. And if you want to contact me, I'm right here at Jackson State, Associate Dean, College of Education. I'll be happy to come out and talk to you. Thank you so much.
Those we have standing for our final presentation. I want to recognize though our presenter, Mr. Don Lewis. I think he is here. Is that right? Hello. But he has a stand-in. That stand-in will be Ms. Maxine Lau, who is Executive Director for 100 Black Men, who will come up. And this will be our final presentation. And I will talk about this instruction. Thank you.
Good afternoon. As you've heard, brevity is the order of the hour, and I assure you I can accommodate that. I'm glad to see Mr. Lewis arrive. I was drafted to do this presentation for you but I assure you I won't do it the justice that perhaps he would have done. In the book, A Call for Change, upon which this particular symposium is built, it suggests that the nation's young black males are in a state of crisis. And of course, speaker ahead of me have also expressed that concern. As we are aware, and as this particular research shows, African American males do not have the same opportunities as their male or female counterparts across this country. They are affected by a lot of isms. Infant mortality rates are higher for this group. Their access to health care is more limited. They are less likely to receive prenatal care and infant medical care. They are more likely to live in a single-parent home, and they are less likely to participate in early childhood programs. Their households are less likely to have a fully employed adult. So consequently, they are more likely to live in poverty. Employment represents a particular crisis in the lives of this group of young men. And that has been mentioned today, that many young males many college students have to assume the role of employee in order to complete their college education as well as to help support their families. Black males are less likely than their peers to be employed. And at almost every juncture of their lives, the odds are stacked against these young men in ways that result in too much unfulfilled potential and too many fractured lives. If we watch our evening news, we will see the unfulfilled potential practically every night when we see lives lost to gunshots, to violence, to drug activity. American males in urban institutions in particular face a myriad of challenges brought to them from their homes and from their communities. Anybody in here remember Moving On Up? Are y'all too young? There were conditions there, but you did have a family, a father figure in that family. African American males are predominantly live in urban spaces where they are perhaps exposed more to the cultural of violence, which includes drug activity, gun activity, crime that gives them a personal experience with all that they do with their lives. I represent 100 Black Men of Jackson, a mentoring organization. And we recognize that the call for change lies within us. Yes, I am female, and I am their executive director, but I believe wholeheartedly in the mission of 100 Black Men. We have a facility that sits on 5 acres of land. It has an Olympic-sized pool. It has a pavilion to which we offer the community as well as the young men we serve. But we call that facility the Village. And most of us in here knows where that adage comes from. The village is what? An African proverb that tells us what? It takes a village to raise a child. And we believe that. Now, okay, I've got 2 minutes, but we were asked to share some of the programs that 100 Black Men of Jackson offers to our local community. Of course, the main one being mentoring the 100 way. And we have a group of men whose challenge and whose responsibility it is to go out into the community to work with young African American males, preparing them to lead successful lives. We have a senior transition program that enables us to transition high school graduating seniors into college, into work, or into the military. Participants prepare written personal career plans based upon their particular interests, and we follow them to see that they actually complete those plans. We offered a Pathway to Success program where our young men, our young mentees were introduced to members of the community and to our membership as well in terms of building entrepreneurial pride. Education, of course, we provide scholarship funds for young men and for local colleges. We have a health and wellness component. We believe that if your body is healthy, then your mind perhaps will be healthy as well. And we offer this to the young men as well as to their families and communities where we have health fairs. Many of our membership members are medical doctors. If not, we bring in what we need. Youth diversity programs, and then we've been offering lately, and this is my final point, an aquatics program. I know we realize that many of us, many people of color, have not yet learned what? To swim. And as a consequence of that, we die. So we realize that we've got this Olympic-sized pool at the village, and we ought to be making use of it for the community. So during summer months, we actually teach water safety and swim to young people, not just African American males, but to females as well. And then finally, the motto of 100 Black Men of Jackson is what they see is what they'll be. We have confidence in our young men. Contrary to what others may say, we see potential in our youth. Not enough good things are being said by them. We accept the challenge. We accept the responsibility. Thank you.
And I know that many of our students will have to leave, but I would ask that you all please just indulge us if you can for a couple of minutes. I'd like our panelists to please all come up front to their questions in recognition of their presentation. I know I kind of rushed them, and the reason I was trying to get them through their presentation is to make certain that, you know, we had an opportunity to entertain any questions that students had with regard to their presentations, particularly the males that are in the room. I would like to acknowledge, I saw that we have some young people in the room. I don't know if they were from maybe high schools or middle schools or what have you. We do appreciate the attendance and your participation. So although I respect your time constraints, I would like to ask those of you who can remain, please do so, and let's try and enter into a conversation with our esteemed panelists regarding their presentations. I don't want to be the one to ask all of these questions because I have several. Yes, sir.
Any member of the panel, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here?
Anyone? Yes, please.
Can you hear me on this? Yes. Dr. Kimmons, thank you for the question. Where do we go from here? Again, I'll say we start where we are. I think that there are, you know, if we look at the panelists, we represent different organizations, institutions. We're engaged in various community activities. We think about the students in the audience. We think about the adults in the audience. We have our hands and feet, our bodies and selves in different communities. We start where we are. We've heard some recommendations. We've heard some things that are working. I don't think there's a need to reinvent the wheel. I think that where do we go from here? We start with commitments. We start with commitments to not only our young men, but also to ourselves, our families, and our communities. As you mentioned, this is about our future. And so if we're talking about where we are going, then we have to look at where all of us are and try to help.
Great, thank you very much.
I'd like to add comments too, if I can. The responsibility to teach children character, self-respect, and moral behavior is teaching children to pray is not the responsibility of the school, it is the responsibility of the Sunday school people in the church. So where do we go from here? Go back to our churches, talk to our pastors about opening those buildings during the day, talk to those people who are retired about coming back to the church sometime during the day. Go to the school and get some of these children who will be suspended and sent to an alternative school for minor infractions because teachers felt as if they weren't welcome in school, and bring them to the church. Get someone to work with those children during the day to teach them to read. If our young black men can read, they will have self-respect. A lot of what they're feeling is that they can't do the homework because no one had time to help them with the homework and help them to read. Our churches have to open their doors every day.
We have to, I'd like to say, we're gonna have to, as males, we're gonna have to do more mentoring. There are too many of our children that don't have positive male role models. They don't have that. I'm a member too of 100 Black Men of Canton. We have to, there's no question about it. Black males are going to have to play a bigger role in our children's lives.
We have a question here, Tom? Yes.
Okay, thank you all for playing this forum. My question is for Dr. Cockrell, and it's related to his presentation. He talked about establishing learning communities. Could you talk about a little more about that and what they would look like?
One of the things that we're doing within our Department of Housing and Residence Life, we're looking at to establish learning communities for students to have an opportunity. We will bring in the faculty members to do academic advising within the residence hall, to do programs and services within the residence hall. But it will be centered around a specific population. So we may have one specifically for African American males, also one for African American females. So where individuals throughout the community, throughout the university, they can come in to assist our students with the mentoring aspect, with programs and services that they need, that they may be in a specific career. And we can align them with a specific advisor or a specific mentor to ensure that those students are going to be successful in their academic endeavors.
I'll add to that as well. I work with our African American Male Initiative at the University of Louisville, and one of the things we do is we do a study hall once a week. So it's very similar to the concept of a learning community. So we invite faculty members to come and be present. We ask members, it's not mandatory, we ask our young men to come in and basically study collaboratively and collectively to basically create positive energy. We know that when we have people who are aspiring to do great things, it energizes us to continue to move forward as well.
Yes, we have a question at the top here.
Again, thank you all for speaking with us about this panel. This one will probably be more suited for Mr. Cole. Speaking of men in the jail system, although the males are jailed, I've heard of programs available in those systems that teach them and better prepare them for when they leave out. Would you say that those are truly beneficial, or do they just serve as an attachment to the time served so they may endure their sentence? And if they are beneficial, why are they learning more so and receiving that information in the jail system when in the free world they're rejecting it? And I would assume, based on what you said, they still face the same dangerous problems in the jail system.
It's probably even worse in the jail system than it is outside. There are many dangers that I have witnessed personally in the jail system. But with the age group that I had, I think they grew up once they got into the prison system. They didn't have the buddies outside. We were their fathers or their mothers and whomever. But I was the principal of the school for nearly 5 years, and we had 4 graduations per year. Those guys are extremely bright. Something distracted them, and we know what a lot of it is, to keep them from reaping the benefits of the things before they got to prison. There's one young man that graduated here last year with a double major, but now because he's a felon, he cannot, there are jobs, we talk on a sometimes a daily basis, he cannot get the job because he has a felony record. But those are some of the things that we have to stop before they get to this level.
And I would echo that and that's a very good question. Those programs that are initiated in the correctional setting, speaking as a former prison sergeant myself, they are good for those inmates, but at the same time, you're coming out with the criminal record. And so it is a service to those inmates, but it depends on, what they're incarcerated for. And that's both at, even at the juvenile level, you're gonna have a lot of programs that offer GED and all of those things for them to get ahead, but they have to get rid of some of the mental baggage that goes along with that, even though their records are raised at 18. Yes, sir.
This message, the question is really, I guess, for Dr. Grooms. You mentioned your work with Urban Prep, and I think in Dr. Coppola's presentation, you talked about being college able as opposed to college ready. Do you think that the challenges we face with a lot of the African American young men necessarily call for just a charter school type of environment where this intensive relational type of environment is necessary, or can we kind of duplicate that program in our neighborhood schools that are already available throughout all the geographic areas around the country? Because that's my concern, is that it seems as though when we talk about solutions for African American males, it always points toward this more individuated, highly intensified, highly specialized type of environment. I'm concerned, can we replicate that, in community after community? Because as you know, it's a national problem. Can we expect there to be these strong black men in Spokane, Washington, or in Amarillo, Texas, or we can see them there, but can we see them all over the country where we need them, or can we start replicating them in the schools that already serve these diverse communities?
Thank you for that question. And I'd love to talk to you for about an hour in response to that. But for the sake of brevity, I'll try to say some things that hopefully synthesize the point. I do not think, I worked with the design team. So we applied to open our school in 2004. It was rejected by the city of Chicago because they didn't think that it would be successful. Then we applied again in 2005. So, well, your curriculum's not tight. Yeah, we don't really see how you're going to do it. And then we applied in 2006 again. And I think they might have just, my personal belief is that they said, you know what, y'all take this so y'all can mess up. Right? I don't think they put a whole lot of faith in us that we would be successful. But I also don't think that they understood the perspective that we were coming from. And so I'm echoing some things that have been said already. Our motto, very simply, is we believe. Now, what does that mean when a young man walks into your building and your initial engagement with him is, I believe you? My experience tells me that changed the entire paradigm, where they're coming from home environments, they're coming from neighborhood environments, they're coming from previous academic experiences, where it's been the exact opposite. I don't believe that you can do that. I don't think you're smart enough. I don't think you care, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so this very seemingly small nuance of a model changes the directive of many of these young men. And I'll speak from their standpoint and having interviewed them and specifically asked them, what do you think about the school's model, we believe? And the young men have said, phenomenal. Said when I walked into the building, I realized there were people that cared about me that didn't even know me. There were people who wanted me to succeed, even though they didn't even know what I had been in the past. And so I use that as an example to say, we don't necessarily need charter schools. What we need is belief, audacious hope, as Duncan already talked about, Cornell West talks about. What we need is really to invest, as Dr. Kimmons said, in ourselves, in our young men, to say, we want you to be successful. So what does that mean? That means that it doesn't matter which school building they walk in which state, city, county, locale, et cetera, if we're willing to invest ourselves doing, Malcolm X by any means necessary, right? And so we had 8:30 to 4:30 school day, extended day, and the guys hated it initially. But you begin to see these transformations because they begin to see it from a different standpoint. And that is, we need to put more into you than the average school day. And so therefore they began to, in various degrees, they began to accept it, buy into it. Clearly there were still guys who rejected it. So this is, even as I can say that they're 100% graduated, that doesn't mean they all wanted to be there. Right? I mean, that's just honest. I don't want to make it seem as if they came to our school, they loved it, and everybody had a great time. No, we had 3 types of young men that came to us. We had those young men who wanted to be there. They looked at it and said, this is where I want to be, even though they couldn't figure it out. We had young men whose parents said, that's where you're going. And the third group, we had young men that said, I don't want to be here. That's a reality. And so that's a reality of every school, locale, et cetera. And so we just have to be very intentional with regards to how we're engaging young men. And then we have to be very intentional where it is we're trying to help them go. And so what I think about in my own work is really just helping them realize who they are. And so that becomes very important to be, make them aware of self-identity, history as well, so that they can basically see not only the people standing in front of them, but the legions of elders and ancestors that have come before them. So first we got Mr. Hollis Watkins here. And I met him 2 years ago. And when I went back and taught, I taught my students about his work. And so we've got to engage in various capacities. And so I can say if we did more charter schools, would that be the solution? Not necessarily. What we need is committed and intentional acts of education in order to help them.
Let's get this. We have one more.
Oh, he had answered perfect.
Oh, okay, you already answered it. And so here's what we want. Yes, we're going to get this last question up top, and then we'll try and wrap some of this up. Yes.
I would answer his question by saying that we must find ways to have quality education and those caring relationships in all of our schools. And my question is to one or more of the male students who are here. What is your reaction to what has been said, or to the general question of what do you need and how can we help you?
Yes, and that's an excellent question. And one I know that we'll carry this conversation on after we break, but in the interest of time, I would like to say thank you all for attending, but I want to bring up Dean Potter. Let's give him a round of applause for his innovation in terms of bringing this forum to the table. Final words, and thank you very much.
I want to say this has been a wonderful, wonderful opportunity, but I'm not going to bring the closing remarks. Keith McMillan will bring the closing remarks. However, since the panel is assembled, and we can walk away from this, but I want to play provocateur. I want to play the devil's advocate, because I've heard a lot about oppositional culture. I've heard a lot about structural racism. This notion of self-identity, I think, is critically important. But when you look at the very recent dilemma of celebrating, I guess, and actually it's fortunate, of celebrating the life of Obeah Rustin, who was very pivotal in the civil rights movement, but clearly excluded based on his sexual identity. My question then becomes, if we're talking about black men or African American males, and we're talking about self-identity, how do we move the conversation from an exclusive focus to one that is more inclusive, where self-identity becomes pervasive? Because when you look at the research of E. Patrick Johnson, and when you look at the research of Keith Boykin, there are others who need to be saved. Those primarily with compromised identities with an S, racial, sexual, and other. So if anyone wants to respond to that, I'd appreciate it.
That may be a whole nother discussion.
That's a whole new panel right there.
And again, one of the things that I'll have to say is, we start looking at acceptance. If we can't find that kind of acceptance in the church, we need to reevaluate what it is that we're doing. We need to be prepared to bring all the children in. We need to be prepared to accept anyone who has a need to find themselves, whatever that self may be. The church can educate. In every culture, you'll find the church being the pivotal foundation of change in humanity throughout the centuries. This is not a new idea. What it has become, though, is more of a social organization than an organization that has been founded upon change and what people believe. So once we start accepting people in for who they are, then it's up to them to make the change. Once we start looking at the church as being an educational institution as well as an institution of faith-oriented and faith-based, then if we can't accept people, I'm not sure why the church exists. So again, let's just look at people as who they are and the fact that they need help, whether they're male, female, African-American, or whomever. If they're in that community and they show up at our doors, we should be able to accept them.
I'd like to say also that I believe wholeheartedly in the phrase that everyone get one or more, but everyone get one. All of the items that you talked about, all of the factions, somebody in this room will fit into one of those categories. So whatever you fit in, whatever you do well, help somebody else. Well, because truly, somebody looks up to every one of us that's sitting in here. So again, everyone get one and do the best you can with the one that you get.
And I'll add to that, because one of the research areas I'm really interested in is school culture and institutional culture. And so there are things that we can do as institutions. There are things that we can do as facilitators of the learning process. So I've actually taught two classes. One was called African American Masculinities, directly to your point. And another class was called Brothers and Scholars. And I taught them both at the high school level and at the college level. And in both of those, it's really about expanding people's horizons about what does masculinities look like, especially when you start talking about working in an all-boys school. It is very easy for homophobia to be present within the school building, both verbal and nonverbal, various ways in which people who have different sexual identities can be oppressed. And so even though we're supposed to be working to, as Dr. Kimmons talks about, save our kids, we can be oppressing some of the same kids. And so we have to be very intentional about who we have, the manifold possibilities, as you mentioned, of identities, and we need to explore them, we need to extrapolate them, we need to engage them intentionally in ways so that our young men can realize who they can be.
Come on, let's give this round. Before you ladies leave, if you bear with me just a few moments, I hate to put you on the spot, but just a few moments since we had it. And I'm just going to close out. I would like to recognize some people that are with us on today. We do have Judge Carlton Reeves with us, an alumnus of 1986, U.S. District Court for the Southern District. We also have some of his law clerks with us. Would y'all like to stay in? Okay. And then I would also like to recognize one of our summer youth program participants, Mr. Nathaniel Horton. Thank you for coming on. And at this time, do we have any elected officials in the House that are still here, and the JSU administration that are still here? Well, thank you again. You guys were giving a blue sheet. Please complete that evaluation form before you leave. Put that on the table for us. And again, make sure that you do sign the roll. What we will do, all of the information that was shared with us on the PowerPoint, all that information will be sent out to you electronically. So please make sure we do have your name and your email so that we can include both a copy of this, a link to this video and a link to all of the presentations that were made. And it's quite obvious that this was definitely not enough time to discuss some of the things that we do. So we will explore some options so that we can dig deeper into this issue and into this concern, hopefully in the near future, Dr. Washington. And maybe with the help, with collaborating with other colleges and College of Education, with some of the minority male programs that we do have going on here at Jackson State, we can really dig deeper and give each of our panelists a little bit more time on the next time, because definitely 10 minutes was not enough to explore all of the things that you had to share. But our time has ended. We do thank you all for coming out, and please feel free to contact us. Mr. Hollis Watkins with Mississippi Veterans, thank you for coming out. And as I do have the mic and in my closing, we will be, and you all will be hearing more about it as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of Freedom Summer, Freedom Summer, which will be going on next summer actually. So in the near future, you will be hearing more and more information about that. Please feel free to stop by the COFO Center. If you have not been, please stop by. Let us know that you were in the place. Let us know if we can do something for you. And at least just feel free to get a part of culture. Okay, and especially if you're still students here, if you're faculty and you have not been to the COFO Center, please stop by and let's see what we can do together to learn a little bit more about this history and about culture and about our entire heritage. Again, thank you. You all have a good evening. And we would like to get a group picture with the panel before you leave. Okay.
So you mean tell me I've been sitting here talking, it's been on? Yeah. Y'all gonna edit this, I hope. How do you turn it out? Press this button?